Oh, right. Well, how do you even begin to encapsulate a TV series like Peaky Blinders? There's so many great TV series out there. You got Sopranos and Breaking Bad and all these arrays of magnificent, Sons of Anarchy that encapsulate different time periods in a way that a movies can't really replicate. A movie is just such a short thing. You're on, you see the movie and it's over, and it's a very short, tight, and concise experience. Now, what TV series thrive on is the fact that TV series can tell a very long, drawn out, personal tale of a long succession of events that occur that really tell a story in ways movies can never do. Now, video games, it could be argued, could tell just as much, if not more, of a story because you're actually in charge of that story. You're actually moving the pieces and performing the actions, and in many cases, actually making decisions that shape the story. But TV series have a way, and now more than ever, of just being able to tell a story completely from start to finish. And Peaky Blinders is one of those shows. Now, it is impossible to talk about Peaky Blinders without mentioning, at the very beginning, its main star attraction, and that is Cillian Murphy's wondrous performance as Thomas Shelby. Tommy is a type of character that is just resonates with so many people, and myself included, as this broken individual who's been beaten down by the world and wants to rise to utter and complete power, and lacks a lot of emotion, but at the same time also is so deeply conflicted inside himself that he can hardly even manage to cope with the day-to-day events. Something as simple as, just talking with a family member is difficult for him. And Tommy is an incredible character that really, really, really is just the star of the show. So much more than the star of the show, in a similar way to way Tony Soprano was in Sopranos. He's just he's just a character you want to see every element of his story play out. You want to know every intricacy of his design. He is just fascinating to watch, and Killian just transports you to a person who is just so incredibly awesome and cool that it's hard to even put into words. Now, Tommy is incredibly amazing, but at the same time, there is other characters as well that are perfectly amazing. You have John Shelby, who's, and then doesn't live the whole way through, but he is through most of it there as this kind of just, uh, you know, devil may care gangster, tough guy who's quite big and built, and he's actually, a strong, powerful figure in the family. Smart as Tommy, but a little bit more careless. But also, just, and he's a cool dude, and you love to see him, and it's tragic when he dies. That scene when he dies is so heart wrenching. It's a tough one to get through. And there are plenty of moments in Peaky Blinders that are just very, very, very difficult to get through. You the loss that you experience when a character like John dies, and it's like, you get to see the other characters, seeing that emotion in them. It's a very, very, very good TV series, and some of these characters are just unbelievable. Of course, we cannot not mention Arthur. Arthur is a really, really complex character. He very much falters at the end of the series. He's, an addict. He's obviously struggled with problems is the entire show. Early on, he's a very powerful character. He's scary type of person, even though it's kind of funny that you look at him. He's not a fully built guy, but he's kind of a scraggly dude. But he has this intimidating presence of just being batshit insane, and that's probably his biggest advantage is he's insane, but he is a very intimidating looking individual. He's got that slicked hair, he's got that masculine mustache, and just very, very gnarly looking human being, and the actor plays him just incredibly. You have to wonder how honestly Paul Anderson was able to transport that, because you can look at pictures of Paul Anderson and he doesn't look as much like Arthur as he is, but when he is Arthur, he's like, he looks way different without the mustache and the hair. But you really got to wonder how he pulled off being such a scary man when, in different looks, and you see him as not playing Peaky Blinders, he doesn't look as intimidating. So what a wonderful job he does as Arthur, because Arthur is such a cool dude. And of course, you cannot go through Peaky Blinders without mentioning probably one of the most biggest fan favorites, and one of my favorites by far in the show, and that is the one and only Tom Hardy as Alfie Solomons. Now, he is a character, it's kind of in and out. At the beginning of the beginning of this series, he's kind of Tommy's adversary. He betrays the family, almost gets Arthur killed. He always does all the stuff that is essentially bad, so you never really fully feel like he's on your side. But kind of throughout the series, there is a feeling that Tommy and Alfie are like best buds, and they kind of just get along. So, I mean, those are some of my favorite scenes in the entire series. It's so good. It's so awesome to see these two interact, and you got to think both actors, Cillian and Tom Hardy, are probably just truly loving every second of taking part in this pretty amazing experience. So yeah, a favorite of mine that always rubs me a wrong way whenever I go through this TV series, because I like him so much as a character, is Finn Cole as Michael Gray. Now, Michael is a character who, like many of the characters, go through different transformations throughout the series. At the beginning of this series, he's kind of innocent. In the middle of it, he's kind of gangster. And then by the end of it, he's just divulged into kind of a moronic bad guy. He's kind of just dumb, evil, hates the family. And keep thinking to yourself, Michael, just like these, like, why do you hate your family so much? Michael, don't be the way you are. And that's the way you feel so much in the last two seasons, season 5 and 6, is that you're like, you know what, Michael he's just turned against everyone. He hates everything. He's married to that utter wench. And she's so annoying, and she's messing everything up and warping his mind. And yeah, it goes on and on and on and on and on with Michael, and he's just never. He's alluded to. He's very intelligent. He's very good with numbers. He's a fairly intelligent person. And he has a very much a ruthless aspect to him, much like Tommy, where he just doesn't really trust anyone, and he's a little bit evil inside, and he's all a little bit good inside, and there's so many complex ways. And that's why I think that Tommy and Michael work so well together, is that there's kind of this brother he never knew he had aspect to it, and it's painful that it comes to the conclusion it does. Michael gets shot in the eye, he dies in tragic fashion, but you know what, he barked himself up down his own tree, and he really gave himself up to the horrors of the life, so to speak, when he could have just been like Tommy's right hand man, the best of bros, the brother he never knew he had, that, but he never feels like he's fully a part of the family, and maybe that is the reason he does the way he is. But I love Michael as a character. He's so cool in some scenes. He plays it very smart throughout most of the TV series, and from the most part, him and John are the close third and fourth of the other characters for me. They're really like both guys. So as we conclude the rundown of the characters here, let's go over Harry Curtin as Finn. Now, Finn is always a character for me who's just such a side character. You know, he's got some cool scenes, like the scene when he's just passed out drunk in the bar and they're all talking him and asking him to be a soldier. He always comes across to me as kind of a little bit of an untrustworthy dude, and he's not very smart and he doesn't really care, and you know, he's just the complete outsider to the real operations and networks, and he's kind of just living his life and enjoying the high life. So Finn to me was always a character who's not that pivotal, even though he has pivotal moments. He's not overly smart, I would say, and he does have some pretty standout awesome moments, and of course he's in the show the entire way through, so he's quite big, and a Shelby brother. But I don't know. He's not high up on the list. He's just kind of there. He really screws people over at times, and yeah, ultimately Finn is very much a side character in my eyes. Now let's go over some of the villains, and without a doubt, one of the standout villains for me is Oswald Mosley, San Claflin. Now, he is just so menacing and ultimately comes across as the ultimate villain for Tommy, whereas all of his other villains seem, you know, yeah, selfish and evil and against Tommy, but you know, and smart. Oswald Mosley is just on another level. I mean, he is a fascist future world leader, and this is an enemy that Tommy just cannot beat. He is so smart and so strong. He knows that he can't take him out. He even tries to, and it doesn't work. It is without a doubt he is the alpha omega for Tommy, and he knows this very early on. He understands that, and yeah, Oswald Mosley is probably one of my favorite villains in the show. Now, another one that is very controversial, and I hate the fact that it's controversial because I love him with all my heart, is Adrien Brody's Luca Changretta. Now, many people say he's over to the top, and you know, he's wonky and it's weird, but I love his performance. He's just so gangster in this, and the introduction and the interplay between the mafia, so to speak, and the Shelbys is so good. I love it. I think it's so awesome. I think it's a great thing. I love Adrien Brody, especially in some scenes. He just owns the show. He even sometimes overtakes Tommy in being so awesome. And of course, the way he dies, I mean, he just gets blasted in horrible fashion. So it's like he gets ended, and that's the end of Adrien Brody. But ultimately, I loved Adrien Brody. I think he was absolutely incredible in it. And I don't agree at all with people saying that he was the worst part of Peaky Blinders and is so phoned in. I think he was going for something, obviously, probably Godfather-esque, but he plays the part well, and it fits very well into a show that doesn't touch too much on the mafia until the fact. I mean, you got to think at that time period, they were still the king. I mean, you have these bookies in London. You've got these individual small, and it's like Luca says in one scene, our organization is on a level you can't even comprehend, and which is very true, because the mafia was this crime empire that most could even dream of coming up to. So we got other villains too. I mean, Sam Neill, what can you say about Inspector Campbell? He's just stunning. He owns the first two episodes as that incredible person. Jimmy McCavern is great. He's just this ruthless country boy who's just wacky and quirky. You've got Father John. There's plenty of villains. There's plenty of people to go through. Billy Kimber, oh man, he's great. Even though he only survives the first episode, he's just mean ass dude who's just like it's a good introduction to what Tommy's gonna have to face with. And yeah, Sabini, another great one. Evil dude. There's so many interplays of characters, but like I said, at the very like if you were to do like a final boss ranking, I would say Oswald Mosley final boss. You know, from there we got Luca Changretta, and like from there it just goes down the line. And that's yeah, those are just some really great villains in this. And Adrien Brody stands out for me always. Freddy is very interesting. You know, there are great characters, and then there's characters you don't really care about much. You know, even Stephen Graham when he comes in, he's an interesting aspect of it. But yeah, there's so many characters. But like I said, Oswald Mosley stands out. Luca Changretta, amazing. An absolute classic is Billy Kimber. So they all have interplays and they all have their strengths and weaknesses. But yeah, there's so many great villains. One for me that has really grown on me is Aberama Gold, Adrien Gillian. He's this really cool kind of pikey, mystical uh, hero. And you know what? Like, it's just tragic that he kind of ends on the circumstances he does. He doesn't really fulfill that legendary status that he should have gotten. Of, I would have played him off better. He's obviously a fan favorite. He has some truly epic scenes, like the scene that he takes Polly out into the wilderness and makes her fall in love and tells her, I know ways back that would take forever and stuff. He's just got this mystical appearance. He's super gangster. He's super mysterious, and you want to learn more about him. And it's such a crying shame that he doesn't get revenge against Jimmy McCavern. I would love that scene. He should have just blasted them or done something, and then maybe they'd taken them out. I understand that sometimes in this world that people don't always live up to their expectations, but to me, this is a character that has a tragic story, like many characters in this story. But yeah, I love Aberama Gold. He's so sweet. And yeah, he's one of those side characters that you just learn to love every time you watch it. And this last time I watched it, definitely starting to love him and wishing he got more. So yeah, there's a basic rundown of all the different characters. Obviously, there's all the women. Polly's great. Ada is great. Grace is interesting. Linda is quite a B word. I really dislike Anna Taylor-Joy as Gina Gray. She's just so nasty. It's like just plays the absolute worst pawn scum in this. So I mean, there are characters that are good, and there are characters that are bad. The women do their part. Lizzie, not bad at all. There are good women in the show, I will say. And yeah, there's a lot of adulting in this movie, and it all plays a part. Like Gina Gray cheating on multiple people with Michael. He never really knew. Well, he kind of got the inclination, and Oswald Mosley is so ruthless for doing that to him and knowing that he could do that with her. But yeah, the sex aspect is this interplay that is very important in Peaky Blinders, and it reverberates throughout the whole show how this is a very grounded in reality. Men have sex and women have, that's their power comes from. So I mean, it has its interesting aspects to it. I really adore the scene when John and Esme get married. I think that was the perfect scene of how they just, the uniting of the families, so to speak. And I was happy for John at that moment because I loved him. And yeah, that is something that must be said. So that's the rundown of the characters. Now let's get to the events of the show. Now, clearly, the central focus of this story is Thomas Shelby coming back from war, a ragtag group of criminals turning it into this enterprise. To me, that's the central premise of the story. Um, the the thought that he could take the foundation of just a very lowly, scrounging street gang and turn it into, an international crime empire is always just such a great story. It's this story of Tommy realizing that if he took the reins of this operation, he could turn it into something incredible. And you see him throughout the entire series acknowledging this, understanding this, and having a clear motivation for taking down enemies, growing empire, expanding, showing intimidation when needed, growing the business, growing the finances, putting the right pieces in place in order to cause this, what you start to see in seasons 3, 4, and 5, where now he's on a different level. He's going from it's like a video game progression. He goes from like street gang to empire, local group empire, taking over these different neighborhoods, to growing to an international trade network, to millions of dollars, which back then would be an unfathomable amount of money. It's all very interesting, and it's the part of the show that you really learn to love the most. It is interesting to see how they're just a bunch of scraggly street men that end in this, mansions and opulence of governors and whatnot. It's yeah, that's the part that I like the most. Obviously, different characters come in at different times, and different power levels, so to speak. No quote like Dragon Ball Z level stuff. You got the power level just keeps rising for Tommy, and then he's got these different levels to work with. But yeah, the ultimate part of it is that you do see Tommy succeed. And you want him to succeed. You want the characters he loves to do well. And the problem with Peaky Blinders, if you even want to call it a problem, because it makes it interesting to watch, is that at different parts, different times, they are at better or worse. And there are times when you're just glowing because Tommy's, he's got his new kids and he's got his big mansion and everything is worked out and he's defeated his enemies. I think that's the end of season 4 that he comes in. And he's like elected member of parliament. He's just taken down Luca Changretta, but it's quickly brought down by just another event. And I understand that they have to keep it interesting and playing out, but like at the same time there are plenty of moments where they're just like, oh, not again. One of the most surprising and downright depressing moments and there are many of bad ones for Tommy in this one, many bad twists and turns, is when he gets beaten up by the father church guy, his entourage, and he gets that like head concussion, and you think it's over for Tommy, and they really tried to make it that way. But I mean, of course, he recovers. He probably saves himself by telling him he has a brain bleed, and then he becomes addicted to all these substances and stuff, and it just kind of all works out in the end. And it's like there are many parts in this movie and this TV show where you like that. You're like, oh, not that. John dies. Oh, that's terrible. Well, on to the next thing. Or the absolute most tragic moment in the entire show is when, was it Rose dies? Yeah, it's horrible. Um, yeah. Was it? Yeah. It's just like and my last viewing is, oh no, it's Ruby Shelby. Well, this sequence is fine. It's tragic. It's so horrible, and it's at was that season 5 at the end. it's awful. Yeah, it's in the last sequence. Carries as it comes consumption in season 6. Now I understand the time period. Okay, time period. Of course, people. You got Freddy who dies, and then you have Ruby who dies of it. But the whole circumstance, and especially feeling so close with Tommy as you do throughout the series, is that you're just like, oh man, no. I remember the first time I watched it, and it hits even harder the second time because you grow to love Tommy so much. But when it happens, after several viewings, you're just like, oh, Tommy, no, because you know what's going through Tommy's mind when it happens is that he's just like an innocent little kid, just is just goes away. It's so tragic for Tommy, and it hurts you to even watch it. And that's many sequences. So let's talk about some of the other sequences. They're just downright downers of time. When Sabini wrecks Tommy, that's a tragic one. When you have Michael betrays, and at the end he dies, that's tragic. The many times, especially in the end of the series sequences, when you have Arthur just completely crapping the bed. He's just like, he's addicted to drugs, he's like dying on the street, he's an alcoholic, he's committing murders, he's doing all these things, and you're just like, Arthur, you're so cool, just chill out. But I mean, I guess that's the beauty of some of these characters, that you want them to be a certain way, but they are the way they are, and you have no control over realistically. So yeah, the downers of the series come and go. Tommy doesn't always win, and he wins a lot, and he becomes powerful, but at the same time, at what cost? Many losses. John is one of my most hated sequence, because I love uh, Adrien Brody's Luca Changretta so much. I adore the seasons he's in. I just love watching him. I'm like, yes, we got Luca. He's in it. He dies in a very quick and swept under the rug fashion that's very embarrassing to him as a whole. But at the same time, throughout that sequence, you get the John death, and the John death is just like, oh, they go and they look at his body, and it's awful. It's brilliant. It is one of the most brilliant deaths in all of cinema, in my opinion, because you feel it so deeply. John's just kind of always there, and now he's gone. Later in the seasons, you get the pictures of the three brothers, and John is there, and Arthur's crying and talking to the portrait. So these sequences come, and they hit you hard because it's such a good TV series, because you're rooting for all these characters you love. When they fail, you're like, eh. I didn't actually notice it too much a while ago, because before was that Shogun, but Cosmo Jarvis is in this as Barney Thompson, and he just kind of is a tragic character. He's like in prison, and then he finally gets out, and then he gets assassinated, and it's like he's just not a great character at all in that aspect. But he does a good job, and noticing him in this was great in my latest walkthrough. The absolute brilliance of Peaky Blinders, the look, the aesthetic, they got their nice clean suits on in the dirty streets, and they're walking down, and that badass music, and Tommy's always so intelligent and a gangster. It really, really makes you want to be a Peaky Blinder, you know what I mean? But I mean, going and living during that time period, doing what these guys does, guaranteed that most people would not be too comfortable in that lifeline. But it's played so brilliantly that it makes you actually adore these characters in this environment, because it's just very, very cool and very unique. The look of the characters, the environment, the way they're always drinking and smoking, like, just absolutely, like Tommy and Arthur, the way they just consistently chug like a half glass of whiskey or whatever they drink all the time. It's just like they're just constantly drinking and smoking. And I learned this recently, but Cillian Murphy was smoking like rose cigarettes or something. And like they're pretty good. They're pretty good looking prop, because when you see him smoking, like he's always smoking these like cigarettes and drinking. You feel it, and I've been there. Trust me. It's like it doesn't make you feel as good as you think it does. Always drinking and smoking like that. So I imagine all these characters would have had some pretty rough mornings, and you see at least the direction of the series kind of shows off that grossity of that hard life of always drinking and consuming everything. Peaky Blinders is a brilliant show, and you'll get through it in about a week like I did of constant binging. It's about 36 hours or so, 30, 40 hours or whatever. And yeah, like every time I start watching it, I started watching it because I came across a clip of my favorite character, one of my favorite characters, Luca Changretta, when he's, pulling the bullets out for Tommy and flicks the one at him. And then what you'll do is because I've seen this series about 3 or 4 times, maybe. I watched it when there was only 3 seasons, and then I binged it a couple times since, fully. You get this sequence of being like, you want to watch it, you watch the first couple episodes, you're hooked. You'll watch it all the way to the end because you want to relive the story. And there's lots of aspects that you may have not picked up on the last time you watched it. And yeah, that definitely happened this latest time. And so I binged it recently. It's a very good TV series. I just love this settings and characters. And then it's just kind of over, you know what I mean? And it's so like, I get that you don't want to take a project and have like 12 seasons of Peaky Blinders and maybe overdoing it. But I wish there was 1 or 2 seasons in between all of that happened, of them just kind of it being okay for them. Maybe there's some gang trouble here and there that they have to deal with. But what happens with Peaky Blinders is it rises up to the top around season 3 of success. Tommy's doing good and doing good, and then he stumbles and then he stumbles and then he's doing good and he's doing good. And then by the end, there's just so much tragedy, and that's why they call season 5 and 6 the 2 depressing seasons, is because it's interesting, and Oswald Mosley certainly adds to the interest of the last 2 seasons. But yeah, I could have wished for a little bit more good time, and not only that, a little bit of good time, but just a little bit more time with the Peaky Blinders. It wraps up very quick, and it never stops. But those moments when they're just kind of just chilling in the pub, talking to each other and hanging out, and things are going pretty good, and they're smiling and cracking jokes, are the best parts of the series. You certainly don't want to see these characters you love falter, but I mean, in the world of crime worlds and crime lords, there's gonna be problems, and there's a lot of problems for them. So yeah, if in the perfect world, we probably could have gotten 8 seasons and 2 seasons of relative peace for the Peaky Blinders. I would have liked to see that more. It would have made me happier to see these characters in a little bit better stance, to get more of John, to pad his story out a little bit more, to see Tommy in a better state, because he has plenty of moments where he's happy and he's laughing and everything's all good, but there are a lot of sequences of him just in utter and complete shambles. And I also would like to see Michael Gray kind of become more close with Tommy and the family, and become less of a little jerk, you know what I mean, and betray everyone. But I guess that's the direction they chose his character to be. Ultimately, at the end of the day, Peaky Blinders is one of the best TV series ever made, in my opinion. It is a captivating time period. It's a very, very intelligently told story. It's a truly magnificent performance by Cillian Murphy as Tommy. He embodies this character, and he has just brought a character to life that I've always wanted, and I look up to as a person. But yeah, that's Peaky Blinders. It's a great TV series, and I love it so, so, so much. It's just so great, and every time I watch it, it makes me wanting more. And lo and behold, there is actually more of it. The Immortal Man is coming out soon, and they'll probably do a review of that. It's looking really, really good, but yeah, who knows? I mean, it's supposed to have Tommy in it, and it's supposed to do during the chaos of World War II. So we'll see. But they're planning on ending the series, and that will be the end of Peaky Blinders. Now, do I think they'll bring it back? Probably. I mean, it's been a phenomenon, world phenomenon. People love this series. But maybe they'll do a spin-off. That would be a cool idea. Maybe do a I don't know. I would love like an Aberama Gold spin-off or something. They probably won't do that. Maybe do like a 1960s, like the after series of Peaky Blinders, and then not as gangster and hardened, or maybe even do like I don't know, do like an origin stories for Alfie, for Tom Hardy. I don't know. There's so many things that they could do. I highly doubt they're just gonna let the series die. They're gonna Netflix will want to keep it up, but the main sequence of Tommy, his rise to power, that might end with Immortal Man. They might kill him off. Who knows? But even if they kill him off, or if they let him live, or if he rides off into the sunset, much along the ways of the end of season 6, it's either way, it'll be a great story, and I freaking love the Peaky fucking Blinders.